Welcome everyone who is joining us on this replay. Tonight with Tea with Mo we're going to talk about the 5 layers of compassion from Gabor Matte. I listened to a podcast of Gabor Matte. You guys know who he is? No? Gabor Matte?
Oh, sure.
No, all right. Canadian doctor, psychiatrist, scientist. Gabor Matte, yeah. Beautiful. Works with addictions. Great addictions person, but also works across a lot of fields. And if you just Google him, you'll be able to find some really beautiful things that he's done. One of the quotes that really touched my heart when I heard it for the first time, he said that, and he talks about compassion a lot because compassion is, in a sense, required to be in that field that he works with. Only when compassion is present will people allow themselves to see the truth. And tonight we're going to talk about the 5 layers of compassion. Now, Tea with Mo is primarily lectures on non-duality. So what I do is I find, it's not hard to find content because I go living life and things drop upon my path and go, oh, what's happening this week? I'm learning about compassion. Thank you, life. Yeah. And so I have these experiences, I interpret them in a particular way and through a particular lens, and then I like to bring them to this platform. And the idea is that from a non-dual lens, there's this suggestion that we're consciousness having a human experience, that your soul, your spirit, there's something that's eternal, that's more than just the physical body. And being consciousness having a human experience, that you're connected to everything, that you are everything. So this is the non-dual lens. Now, there's the dual lens, or the duality lens, that we live in this world, where there is an up and there is a down. There's judgment that creates wrong and right, justice and injustice, these paradigms and these polarities of a north and a south, a duality of polarizing experiences, terms, conditions and perceptions. Yeah. So here's this, this thing that is not non-dual in nature, having a dual experience, which is really interesting. It'd be like saying, here is dirt experiencing itself as water. Yeah. For dirt to experience itself as water, it must become something that it's not. So in becoming something that it's not, it gets to have a really authentic experience. So this human experience that we have is so unique. Yeah? And yet, within our uniqueness, what is primarily happening is you are all having an experience. So you're all receiving data and you're transmitting data. And what are you receiving it from? Others, the world, the universe, the things that we call life. And where are you transmitting it to? Others, the universe, the thing that we call life. So see how everything is all happening. And there's even a beautiful phrase that says that you are God realizing itself. So if God was the creator, prime creator, and it created all of this, it's omnipotent, it's omnipresent, it's everywhere, but it's nowhere, it knows everything and yet it knows nothing. For it to have that capacity, to have that, it would have to be knowing itself in not knowing itself. For it to be expanding into everything, it would need to experience everything. And how does it experience everything if it's already experienced everything? We then create these micro slips of time called lives, where we come into an experience that we are forgetting what we are. You forget that you are divine consciousness. You forget that you are everything. So you can then experience what you're not. And as you experience what you're not, you then have a very authentic experience. Separate, individuated experiences. And yet all of those experiences are being fed into the whole, and as they're fed into the whole, that whole becomes the whole experience. And so that's how the whole can actually love you for your experience, because you're offering to its experience. Every one of you has had a mother and a father. You are a child of somebody. And you may be a singular unit, or you may have siblings. But the mother and the father get to experience themselves through you. Through your ruptures, your repairs, through your delights, through your ecstasies, through your betrayals. So they're watching you. This primary caregiver is watching over you and experiencing. You're adding to see how you add to their experience. And for those of you who may have children or young ones, they're adding to your experience. And even the friends that we have are adding to our experience. So this non-dual lens really encompasses this whole experience. And tonight, talking about the 5 layers of compassion, what I wanted to present to you is, hey, this is what Gabor Matte is saying. This is what was arising for me. Consider it. How does it sit for you? I then also want to show you how, or over a perspective or a lens, that maybe compassion could be the gateway of the human experience to actually touch the divine. Maybe that's a portal of where that intersects and where that meets is where the human and the divine can just notice each other, maybe blend into each other. And we'll do that by having meditation. So you have the experience. So I'm going to talk about stuff, consider it, and then go in and meet some compassion within you. And hopefully that will help with this whole experience. Right. So Gabor Matte, you're saying the 5 levels or 5 layers of compassion. Initially, as I move through this, it's really important to become aware of words, because when you say layers, it's sort of like layers on a cake. There's one on top of another and something that sits below. That's how I sort of see layers. But layers could be, I guess, multidimensional. He could have called it the 5 steps, the 5 layers, the 5 stages. So I find language really interesting. So layers. I don't know if they're layers. I think there is like a hierarchy to it. I think that one would maybe lead to the next. I don't know. Or they could just be, I'm noticing this and it's the 5th layer. Or it could be the 3rd layer. Yeah? So just consider how this sits with you as well. So the first layer is ordinary human compassion. So as humans, we have ordinary compassion for another human. And what he was saying is that it's the ability to suffer with. So compassion, compassion is this capacity to sit with another as they're suffering. Not to take it away from them, because there's sympathy. I feel sorry for you. It's compassion. I'm going to sit with you. And he was saying that there's an activation of a brain system that cares for others. So there would be something going on within the mind, releasing particular neurochemicals. So there's this ordinary human compassion. Now the interesting thing here is that Gabor Matte comes from a wide range of different philosophies and traditions and belief systems. From a Buddhist perspective, you can cultivate compassion. So there's a suggestion that you aren't inherently compassionate, but you can cultivate it. Or it could be suggesting that there is this capacity to have it there, like a seed. Now can I cultivate the seed and grow it? So that's from a Buddhist perspective, that we can cultivate compassion by doing particular exercises and doing things. From a internal family systems perspective, one of the gateways or one of the characteristics of self-energy is compassion, that you are compassion. So you don't need to cultivate it, you are it. Gabor Matte is, in a sense, presenting here what I find interesting, that there's different types of compassion, which I find interesting. And then as I feel into it, I go, yeah, that makes sense. So this may be helpful for you. You have this ordinary human compassion that I'm willing to suffer with. All right. So there's, I guess, a sense of it's how I could connect with others. It's something that is important in being a human being, that this compassion is available and is there. The second layer, and the way that he moves through it, he says compassion of something. So I don't fully understand, are you bringing this type of compassion, or is there an awareness of compassion of something? So once again, to consider. So the second layer is compassion of understanding. Compassion of understanding. And it's this, I feel for your suffering. I want to understand why you are suffering. So here's this, I'm curious as to, I can see that you're suffering, and now I want to understand it. And we use empathy to understand what is happening. So here this skill, tool, I don't know, whatever you would call it, this thing called empathy is being used to develop compassion of understanding. Without that empathy, I can just go, that person's suffering, and I can sit with them. But I don't necessarily have to inquire into them. I don't really need to understand. I can just say, yes, they're suffering, and I'm sitting with you. The second layer now is whether it's a layer that goes up or down.
You got a low battery warning.
That's okay. And if it cuts out, then you are the only people meant to hear it. And thank you for bringing that to me. So there's this now compassion of wanting to understand someone's suffering. And empathy is then used to do that. So now I've got this different layer of compassion. Or is it a different layer? Like, does it feel different then? If I have compassion for understanding, is that different to just having compassion for somebody? And how would I know the difference? No, I'm curious. Then third layer is compassion of recognition. So this one says that I don't see myself as different from you. We are on the same boat. And I love it because this is what he says. I recognize those parts in you, in me. So here's this recognition that, yes, you're suffering, and maybe you need to have an understanding to then get to the recognition. I don't know, maybe could you bypass understanding to come to a recognition? Not too sure. So I'm still unsure about these layers. Are they steps? Do I need to get to one before the next? Or are these just awarenesses of different things? Yeah. They could be stages, but the stages are interchangeable, like grief and loss. So I don't see myself as different from you. Now, straight away, my mind, I'm going to the spiritual mind here, you know, you are another self. But I don't think this is what he's suggesting. However, it's another lens and another layer that you could put over it from a non-dual lens, okay? But let's just look at the dual lens, the psychology lens, I think initially. I don't see myself as different from you. So to me, that was sort of saying, yeah, you got shit going on and I got shit going on, yeah? I suffer, you suffer. So there's that connectivity within that, yeah? Just because I'm this, it doesn't mean that I don't have that. We are on the same boat, so emotionally, you know, going through, you know, like a lot of people in COVID, you could go, hey, we're all on the same boat here. There's a compassion and the recognition of this is what's happening. Yeah. For other people, it was a little bit different because of, you know, particular decisions that they and we made as well. I particularly like this comment where he says, I recognize those parts in you in me. Now here is a deeper level of understanding, I believe. This is where I think the compassion of understanding really helps with the compassion of recognition. Yeah. So now am I, and here's the question, am I developing a different type of compassion? Am I opening up the orifice of compassion? Because initially it might just be really small. Oh yeah, another human being, I care, here it is. And I can do that with many people, everybody. But then I might meet somebody, something's going on, and I go, I really want to open more to you. I'm interested in what's happening for you. Why is this happening? And as that's opening, I recognize what's happening for you is very similar to what's happening. Wow, this is amazing. And so now here was where the thought I had was, if I'm recognizing, having compassion of recognition, can I then start to then bring that back to me? Because those parts in you that I'm giving compassion are also existent within me, so can I then start to bring that back? I'm not too sure if that's where he was going, but once again, this is what was then arising for me as well. I love these theories because I go, oh wow, I'd like to add to that, or I wonder where is, so I'm constantly curious about this. The fourth layer is the compassion of truth. Now, this is really, really powerful. The compassion of truth. I'm not trying to protect you from the pain of truth. I want you to know the truth. The truth will liberate you, and the truth will be painful. Compassion of truth. Right, so, I'm noticing compassion, I'm inquiring into the understanding of it. I'm now recognizing that something here is quite similar to me, and there could be a message within this for me. Compassion of the truth could be, for a lot of people, they suffer because they are resisting the truth. Yeah. And then when you sit with somebody with compassion of truth, that truth can be given to somebody, or that truth can be relayed to going, hey, this is actually what's happening here. And I turn my heart towards your suffering. It doesn't mean that I take on the suffering. I open my heart to it. And it's interesting, isn't it? There's a recognition of it because we've gone through the compassion of recognition. Now, see where that reflects onto another, then how do I then bring that back to myself? Because all of this compassion initially seems to be of another human being, yeah? So it's to the other. And then I think it's important to then, as what we do to another, can we also do that to ourselves? Can we bring it to ourselves? And if we can't bring it to ourselves, then there's further resistance. Can I be compassionate to the resistance of not receiving compassion of self? So I think it's important whenever we're looking at these theories, layers about what we can do with another, the other is actually a reflection of self. Now, if we start to bring in the non-dual lens, well, you are another self. The compassion that I give to you, I'm actually giving it to the Creator. I'm showing the Creator. I'm showing the Creator compassion. So good to flip around. And then this is where I then started to go into non-dual very quickly. Fifth is the compassion of possibility. In a lot of the spaces that both Ali and I have worked, we've worked with the pointy end of the stick, the 5% of the population that have severe mental illness, chronic addiction, and extreme parts that are behaving in so many ways. And one of the things that we've always been very encouraging of ourselves and others to bring to that space is to have an open heart and see the possibility that people can be. So when you see that compassion can go so far, it's infinite. It's this unconditional positive regard. It's the, I see you. I see you. I see you where maybe no one else sees you. I see you with love and I see you with compassion. I drop my judgment. I drop my perceptions. I am here to be with you. Which I find really interesting because I can go there quite easily. Do I need to go through all of the others? Or can I go there easily because I've been through all of the others? And I can recognise it. And the way he says, I see you for the beautiful human being that you are. I see you for the beautiful human being that you are. So what that said to me was, well, I see you as another self. Compassion of possibilities, of course. No matter what is happening, I just see you as another self. I can look at all of the stuff that's going on in the world with the Great Reset and everything else there, and I can still look at all of that chaos, look at all of the darkness that sits with that, and I can still see them as another self. Do I have to agree with it? No. But I can still open my heart to them. Okay, so they're saying that, you may need to hold someone at arm's length, but always have them in your heart. You can always hold them at arm's length, but always have them in your heart. And one of the final quotes he says, when we ignore truth, we are ignoring who we are. Which I thought was really beautiful. So, they are the 5 layers of compassion. Ellie, can you see this young gentleman? And what I'd like to also present to you is the element of compassion from an internal family systems perspective. So what they're saying there is that compassion is it's a characteristic of self-energy, and self-energy is the sky. Self-energy is what has always been there, watching your temporary arisings and fallings. Maybe the essence of you. So what I'd like to offer you is a meditation to meet compassion and to feel what compassion feels like, and to also see what information compassion has for you as well. Brother, come and sit. Come and sit.
Sure, thank you. Sorry, apologies for my lateness.
And that's okay. And who are you? Ash.
Ash.
Oh, Ash. My name's Maurice. All right.
Is anyone sitting there?
You are sitting there now, Ash. Bring it over. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to turn on.
So we've just been talking about compassion, Ash, and the 5 layers of compassion from Gabor Matte. And it's just interesting how there were different layers of recognitions of compassion. And I find compassion really an interesting experience, conversation, discussion, in a sense. What I wanted to offer you now is a meditation where you can meet compassion. compassion for you, or what compassion is for you as well. So in meeting compassion, it'll be interesting to see what that feels like for you. You're not going anywhere, but you could be, your natural state could be one of compassion. Or compassion might be something that you visit at particular times. And compassion might even be something you may not even be aware of. So let's inquire into it. There's certain information that compassion might have for you. And what I'll do is I'll guide you into this journey, and I'll be asking you questions so you can communicate with compassion within you. And your job is to listen. So you're going to meet compassion, you're going to ask it some questions, you're going to explore it, and then just listen. Listen what comes back. Try not to think too much. The mind will get in there and want to have a bit of a chat. But just listen to see what arises. This inner listening, which is really important that we find. All right. So what I'll get you to do is, if you're comfortable enough, to close your eyes and just start to with all meditations that I take, I like to ground people to their breath. So let's visit the breath in this moment. No particular way of breathing. You're breathing already. You've been doing it all day, so don't go changing anything now. So just get familiar with the breath. There's a really nice movement to the breath. There's an inspiration, and then there's an exhalation. So an inhale and an exhale. A breathe in, a breathe out. Just notice the way that you're breathing. Are you breathing in and out of your nose, or in your nose, out your mouth? Whatever is happening for you, just notice that. And where there is the breath, we then usually find that there's movement. So air is coming in, our muscles are contracting, feel an expansion. Air is moving out, it's a relaxing of muscles, and also a contraction of the space. And it just seems to do it on its own. There's a beauty in that. The breath has always been there for you, every moment of your days. If we could just bring some gratitude and appreciation to the breath. Thank you, breath, for breathing me. So now that we've found the breath and we're relating with it, we're nice and anchored into this, and I always like to anchor into the breath and let it hold you as you journey. Where we're going to journey in these moments is we're going to visit compassion. So I'd like you to use your imagination, your memory, visualization, to just scan your memories of where you found yourself giving compassion to another, giving compassion to self, or finding yourself just in a compassionate state. And just see what arises through your mind. You've given the mind something to do. It's scanning, it's going, I can get that for you. If you can find a space, place, then just really feel into that and Start to, in a sense, relive it in your mind. And if you can't find the space, then we could imagine what compassion would feel like. So as we're experiencing compassion, just start to notice the visuals, the memory, whatever it is that's coming to you, and then notice if there is a felt sensation within the body. What does compassion feel like? I was given a beautiful opportunity to feel compassion this afternoon. Initially, I didn't feel compassion. I felt wronged. I felt that there was an injustice. And then I felt this wave of compassion moving through me. And it decreased my sense of injustice. It shifted stuff for me. So I noticed that's what was happening as compassion was visiting me, or as I was visiting compassion. So just feeling into that and reminding you, oh, right, that's what compassion is for that moment, in that time. So as we're in the body, I'd like to invite you back up into the mind to then come to an imagination, a visualization that if we were to maybe visit that compassionate space, that there's a felt sense within the body, and it could be represented by a door. Just imagine the door of compassion in front of you. Actually, it could be anywhere. It could be in front of you, or the side of you, however it wants to appear for you. And take a good look at the door. Just see, what's this door made of? How big is it? Is it small? Does it have colours? Does it have a texture, maybe a particular type of shape to it? Does it remind you of something? And I'd like you to open the door of compassion and then step through the doorway. Once again, notice what's arising as you're doing this. And sometimes when we step through doorways, there can be hallways or corridors, or sometimes we can just open up into either an open expanse. Whatever is there for you in these moments. And as you open that door and step into what lies beyond the door, I would invite you to explore that space. And I'd like you to feel into that space and feel if it has boundaries. Is there an end to this space? Or is it endless? How would you describe that? It might have walls, it may not. There may be an end to it, and there may not be. Just feel into that. You don't have to see beyond, it's just feeling into it. It's a felt sense of this. And continue to explore, because there might be some things there for you that are really pertinent to you. There might be some messages available to you. So if there is something there, then move toward it and listen to what it has to say. And we can simply just ask the question, what information do you have for me? Just listen. listening might even be in a feeling state. Feeling my heart expand, seeing colours. There's a gravity. Get to know this place and this space. Also notice the mind in these moments. If there is any judgment that's arising, then it's the perfect place to bring compassion to it. You're in compassion. Just sit here for a little longer, getting to know your compassion. Maybe you can speak to it in the way that you'd like to. Maybe even giving gratitude and thanks to compassion whenever it's present. Maybe wanting to invite compassion more into your life. Maybe just getting to know compassion, developing your awareness of it. And in these final moments of visiting compassion, can we just thank it for just being there for us? And if I could invite you to then step out of the door that you came through, and then closing the door, knowing that you can return here at any moment, knowing that this is actually the essence of you, knowing that you are compassion. Looking at the door and noticing if there's any changes to the door. Or is it still the same? And as we've journeyed from the breath, then let's return to it. Bringing the awareness of the inhale and the exhale. Bringing your awareness back into this body, this time and space. Taking some deeper breaths. When you're ready, you start to move the body. And then opening the eyes. So tonight we've we have journeyed into a conversation of these different layers of compassion, and I think through speaking it through, what I'm sort of seeing is that maybe it's the awareness of the different types. Are they different types? Because there was compassion of having the human experience, compassion of understanding somebody's experience, inquiring into them. compassion of the recognition that what's happening for them is and can be quite similar to what's happening for me. So there's that recognition. And then a compassion of truth, the compassion is usually related to suffering. Suffering is usually related to resisting the truth. So can we allow truth to be in here, and can we sit with it? And then this compassion of possibility where, I'm seeing you for your potential. I think through the discussion there was sort of this perspective that I can go from 1 to 5 or 1 to 4, but maybe I can go there because I've already developed 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't know. I'm curious as to what was arising for people around that. And that this perspective of compassion sort of, I think the layers are of the awareness. Here's a layer of awareness of compassion. Maybe it's got a different feeling, I don't know. Maybe I can be a bit more mindful of what that is. First I need to recognise what compassion is. What does it feel like? Do I do it? Do other people do it to me? And what does it feel like to have someone sit with me and be compassionate? Don't know, something to consider. And then to go into that meditation where it's just a bit of a, okay, well, if I was going to visit compassion, where would that be? What is my felt experience when I have had it? Can I inquire into that? As I inquire into it, is there information that it's able to transmit to me? Am I able to receive it? So that's where we went tonight.